Let me know if everyone can see my screen.
I can, Naveed.
Okay, great.
I see it.
Great. And yeah, good. So once again, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining for another session of Azure Power Lunch. And just want to give a quick disclaimer that this session is being recorded, and we will post the recording to our YouTube channel. So if you don't want to be recorded, you may want to drop off now. Okay. With that, topic of our discussion today is NFS 3.0 support for Azure Blob storage. So we're going to talk a little bit about um, what NFS is and what does it mean. And by the way, I will share the slide deck after, and the link of the slide deck will be in the description of the session at YouTube. Okay, so NFS, Network File System, as it being called, is something that it has its roots in open source, and it's very popular. There are a number of implementations. Since it's an open source system, anybody can have their implementation, and there are different versions. So Azure Blob Storage allows you to create container and share those containers to your um, Linux or Windows system using NFS. That's what this support means. This is currently in preview, and I just want to make sure that you understand that this is a preview feature, and it's only available for premium tier of blob storage. It's not available for every tier. It's only available for premier tier of block, and especially for blob storage. Okay, and we will take a look at it when we create a storage account. And it's only available in the following region: East, Central. I mean, you can read the regions which is available at this point. Of course, when it goes to general availability, there will be more regions that's coming in. And there are certain steps. Since it's in preview, you have to whitelist that feature, and you have to request that for whitelisting. And in order to do that, you have to, so let's take a look at this. This is how you whitelist this. And currently there are PowerShell commands. So let me just increase the size. Okay. So what you will have to do is you will have to call these PowerShell commands, which enable this feature for your subscription, and it takes some time. I mean, in my case, it took maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes to do the whitelisting. And once that feature is whitelisted, you verify, and then you start creating this particular storage account, and then start creating the shares. And just keep in mind, if you have, as far as I know, you have to enable this feature at the startup. You cannot turn it on. That's what I noticed. Okay. And one other thing is, it will only accept, I mean, it will only work if your storage account is actually connected to a VNet. And what is that means when it's accepting traffic or connecting to a VNet? And that's what clarifies. And actually, before, I mean, you can read this, but I want to show you this diagram. So first scenario, you have a storage account that is connected to a VNet using service endpoints. If you're not aware of service endpoints allow you to lock access to a public Azure resource using using a particular set of IP addresses. So basically, what you can do is you can say that this VNet, only this VNet can access this particular store. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. This is called service endpoint. So if you have service endpoints enabled, as you can see here, I can create a share and I can use that, okay, on a VM. Second thing is I can have a private endpoint. So I can have a private endpoint created in my VNet for a storage, blob storage, and then I can uh, I can share that, do that NFS share on top of a blob store. Okay. Third one is that I have a VNet that is peered to a VNet where I am doing this VNet, private link, or I'm doing service endpoints. Once I do that, then this scenario will work. But at the same time, I have to add the IP address range of the VNet where my VM is into the for the service endpoint definition in um, in that storage account. Third one is that I have a, a storage account that is linked to a VNet, which is connected to on-prem. So an on-prem machine can use that share. So they're all different scenario, but in each scenario, basically you have to have the storage account linked to a particular VNet. Either it's through service endpoints or basically accepting traffic from a VNet, either through service endpoints or private link. Okay, I know it's a lot of information, so any questions? Okay,
Hi, sorry,
go
Naveen.
ahead.
So, does this actually replace the block fuse that we use nowadays to have that functionality?
That's a good question. Uh, I think it's in preview, so we will have to look at limitations and all. And actually, next slide is limitation. So we have to see if it provides all the capabilities that are needed, and they are no longer, so you don't no longer use block views. So that's we have to see. Just keep in mind it's in public preview. So if you have a existing solution which is in GA and you're using blob views for it, you may want to take a minute, evaluate it carefully, and then use it, because when it's in preview, there is not support available for it normally. So that's my
Okay.
only caution.
Yeah,
In
makes
terms of
sense.
function, yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, that this is basically kind of will allow you to replace blob views at some point. I mean, where you don't have to use any third-party components to have it will have a native NFS 3.0 support right sitting on top of blob storage.
Perfect.
Okay. Um, any other questions? Okie dokie. So let's quickly move on to uh, a quick demo. So first of all, when you create a storage account, let's create a storage account. We will have to create that storage account. Yes. So let's go into this group, um, and let's give it a name, and then we'll look at the storage account. And we are gonna pick, okay, which region I am sitting in. Let me just check. Give me 1 second. Yes, it's in East US, so let's use East US. So first of all, it has to be premium. Then it has to be the only supported type is blob, and it's locally redundant. In terms of networking, I'm gonna do a public endpoint selected network. So I'm gonna pick a network in the East region, and I'm gonna pick this PL subnet. So that's how I'm restricting traffic. This is not private endpoint, but I'm basically saying that the only traffic that comes to this storage is from that particular subnet. Okay, moving on, and then there are different things uh, that I can do. This is where NFS will come. And by the way, just another thing to keep in mind. You see, right now it's disabled. It only works with hierarchical namespace. Okay. And at that time, you enable it. So this is enabled, and that's all. So with that, we do a review and create, and it's done. So this storage account is created, and now we can use this storage account to share, to create NFS share. Okay, one thing I want to make sure that you have already run all of these commands in your storage account. So if I go in here, let me copy these commands and let me go into, this is PowerShell. So I'm just going to run these commands. It says allow NFS v3 registered. And if I do premium HNS, this feature is already registered. So so if you're not able to see this feature, it's not working, please check these feature flag on your subscription. They have to be enabled on your subscription. You may not be in the right subscription, so that's something you have to check. You have to verify that this thing is there, and then move further. Okay, so with that, the resource is created. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a container in this resource, and I'm going to name it APL blobs. And type called APL blobs, and I'm going to create it. So this is created. So what I can do now is I can go in and start creating shares sitting on top of this container. There are a few other things that you have to take care of. For example, if you are running Windows, you have to make sure you have the NFS share feature available. So in the documentation that I have, it clearly tells you what you need to do. For example, here, you have to, yeah, this is, if it is Windows, you have to turn on client for NFS. Okay, this you have to have installed. Otherwise, this thing share will not work. It will give you a weird error. Okay, and uh, same thing for Linux. I mean, you have to turn on NFS support if that is not already installed on your Linux VM. Okay, with that, so let's go in and let's go. So this is one of, oh, disconnected. Let's try again. Uh, oh, come on. Why it is not connected? Okay, let's try to connect to this again. Yeah, I'm able to connect. So let's go to this machine. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to run, come on. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to run this command to create that share. So this is the command that we have to use. This will uh, name of your storage account and then name of the blob. So let me go here. Name of my blob container is this. So let me just copy this here. And name of my storage account is, sorry, this was the name of the container. I know. Sorry, guys. Yeah, this is the name of the container, and the name of the storage account is this. So let me just quickly copy that, and we should be good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run this command in my my Windows machine. So let's run this. What happened? Did it restart it? Okay, let's use another machine that I'm already using. So let me try that. So let's.
Naveed, I'm not sure if I see correctly, but there's a colon at the end of the URL after .NET. Is that normal?
Where? Sorry.
After like blob.core.windows.net, then there's a colon as if like
Yeah, that should be there.
that
Yeah,
should
that's.
be
I
there.
mean,
Yeah.
that should be
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Okay.
think
Let me try.
I think you have a double quotes towards the. Do you have the quotations or something like a white space there potentially?
Oh, this here.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's white space when it got copied in. Try it now.
Oh, okay.
Drive letter. So now you got to specify the drive and it should be good.
It's not picking up. Uh,
It's looking for a drive letter so that you can put the mount, the symbolic link.
Let me just try Y drive. Let's see what happens. Interesting. That's interesting. Okay, so demo issues, no worries. Let me try. I already have a share that I have created, so let me show you that. So I already have a storage account. Um, Let me go in here, overview. This is the resource group. So I already have a storage account and NZ Blob with NFS, and I have a container in that, this one, and I have already created a share. So let's try that. Let's see if we can connect to that share. And I mean, let's try with that second one. Yeah. So this is all the files. You can see all the files which are here in that particular directory. And at the same time, if I go in here, I've already connected it, this PC, and this is the share. And there are a few other things you have to do in the case of Windows. You have to turn on anonymous user, otherwise it will start complaining in terms of as you start trying to edit files. So this is a file share. I can go in here and I can do 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is file is saved. Everything looks good. And if I want to copy a file here, and if I, let's say, rename this or let's just say copy, and I can paste. So yeah, this file is copied. So this is just like any other file shared, just using NFS protocol. Just keep in mind, if you're opening this up from on-prem, you will have to allow certain ports. I don't remember the port names, but they are very well documented. You have to open those ports so you can access it from on-prem. Okay, so this is the example of Windows, and at the same time you have Linux. So this is the this is same machine. I have already created a share on that. In that case, you have to do two things. So what you will have to do is you will have to create a directory. So let's create a directory here. Uh, let's create it too, and then you will have to mount that share on a different directory. So let's mount this share. So I'm going to copy this share and I'm going to mount to a different directory. So now I have this share mounted on this particular directory. Let's check it out. Very painful. Test 2. So these are all the files there. So if I go into that particular directory, I can go in here and I have to do sudo, and because I didn't bother to change the permission, um, So I can just create a file. And I can get some text in. One, escape, and save it. So if I get a list, you see I have that file. Point is, I mean, now this file is there. And if we go back to the storage account, this file should show up here. If I refresh it, yes, this file is here. So the point is you can, create a file share, NFS, mount it to Windows and Linux. I know that the demo with when I'm creating a new file share didn't work. Must be a user error. I have to look into it. I'm sorry, but this thing, I have tested into, and it works as documented if you follow all the steps. So, any questions at this point while we look at the limitations?
What are the practical use cases for this? Can a .NET application or web application can use it, or could you please explain?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about Azure App Service, web apps, I mean, they cannot use file share. I mean, they can access to, so that's not the case. But if you have a web app that was accessing an NFS file share on running on a VM, of course, why not?
What about if it's Linux with a MySQL, exporting the MySQL databases? Is that a supported scenario, or are we just using this just for regular sharing and collaboration?
Okay, as far as I know, you have to look at the IOPS, because if you are using it for a high IOPS scenario, you may have to increase the size of the storage, because just keep in mind, in the case of premium blob storage, IOPS is directly tied to the size of the disk. So you cannot have like a disk that only supports like 100 of like 500 IOPS, and you try to put like run a very high IOPS heavy workload on top of it. So I think before we provision that for such a scenario, it may be a good idea to test it out to see what are some of the pros and cons. Because as far as I know, it's still in preview, so the performance may or may not be there where they want it to be, because there's a lot of stuff in terms of functionality which has been ironed out when something is in preview. Then instead of focusing on performance tuning, which comes probably towards the end. I hope that addresses your question.
Thank you very much.
Any other question? Okay. So
Yeah, one more question, Navid.
please.
Just trying to, if you compare the price between Azure Files versus this, do you think this would be more cheaper than Azure Files, or what's the advantage of this?
That's a good question. I mean, I haven't done that, but definitely it's worth looking if it is. Just keep in mind when you do Azure Files, and I mean, and when you mount those shares, as far as I know, they are SMB. Okay, so they're mounted as SMB, so they're different protocol. It may be there are certain application which can only use NFS, and I'm sure you have come across workloads where the application which needs to run required an NFS shares, and in that case, I mean, there is not a question of you can use one or the other. It's you have to use basically NFS support. And by the way, for the NFS, for the Azure files, I mean, that's I will have to check in terms of cost. I mean, that's something I have to check.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, folks?
No, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Great. Yeah, I mean, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I will, thanks for joining, and I will place the presentation and the slide deck at our YouTube channel. Thank you again, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, Naveed. Thanks, team. Have a good day.
Thanks, Naveed.